Hope everybody's doing well. I had another strange encounter, so this might be a weird video, but I didn't plan on it. I totally plan on it being a quickie. We can continue the conversation either later or in the comment section in more depth if you'd like. I just realized I went live the other day on the wrong channel. I meant it to be on this channel, but it went to the other one. That's all right. Okay, so let's do this quickly, shall we? And before I get started, please know that I do this out of love and love for the human race, love for the souls that we have, love for this place, and love for the God, first of all, that gave it all to us and made it all for us. That point is often lost in things like the simulation theory, the matrix theory, NPCs. There's a reason I steer away from that language as best as I can, because when you get on to speaking about one group being less than another group of humans, of beings, of souled beings, you're on a road to euthanasia and or genocide. No, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice in any way, shape, nor form. Everything I share on the screen will be shared per the Fair Use Act of 1976. Everything that I share is also sourced from Google itself, so they can't really censor themselves. So let's get to it. I don't know if anyone will watch this. I know there's a few new people here. If you don't understand where I'm headed with this, you might want to go back, and you don't have to go back through the whole channel, but, watch a couple of their most recent lives. So, May 5th and 6th, we've talked about. There is so much going on in these days. It is literally written in the stars at this point. So first of all, on the 5th, the Pope will, and I know not everybody's Catholic, that's not the point. The point is there's a few things that run this place down here, right? Kings, queens, money. So we know that the one that runs the money, a lot of it, is the Pope and the Vatican, also the Federal Reserve. We know this. We know that politicians are most likely just figureheads. They're actors. They're literally actors. John Wayne was an actor. Trump had his own reality show before he became president. That they're telling us without coming out and using words and telling us that this place, the system of the place, I don't want to get it confused with nature because that's a totally different thing. I'm grateful for everything that we have here that God gave us, and I'm grateful for our own ingenuity and the things that we can accomplish when we work together. The problem is that nobody's working together, and so we are in this tug of war, which was ironic. That's relating to my personal life, but anyway, we are in this tug of war. If you were in France or Italy, you would say war of tug, and it would actually make more sense. Our language is also backwards. But anyways, there's a lot going on in this realm, in the system of things, on the 5th and 6th. So, on the 5th, the Pope will decide if they will add Mayan rites to Catholic Mass. This is huge. I can't even describe how huge this is. And mostly, as I like to do, let's bottom line it and get to the bare nuts and bolts of it real quickly. Mayans were all about human sacrifice. Their quote-unquote Mass and their altar was for blood to be shed, okay? Anyone that studies the Mayan culture, even for a moment, even at a glance, will know this, okay? I actually have a chessboard my dad left me. It has Mayan pieces on it, and I don't even want to have it in my house at this point if this is what continues to happen. Should we all be together? Should we worship together and do these things together? I happen to believe that most of us are praying to the same creator God. I know that's not a popular opinion on YouTube because YouTube is a military operation as well, and it's divisive. It is planned that way. They want it to be divisive. They want you to tear down your own house. The Bible says the woman who tears down her own house is foolish indeed, who tears down the walls of her own house. And that's what we're doing when we help them and assist them in saying how horrible America is and how horrible the churches are and how horrible everything is. Is it bad? Obviously, in this time, yes, things are not looking good. But they could always be changed. We could always put the brakes on this and turn around and take a look at ourselves and each other and say, all right, we got to work together here. I might be an idealist, but that's what I think should happen. Will it happen? I don't know. I would like to see it happen. Sorry, my back is hurting. Okay, so the next thing, the Pope will decide whether or not to add mine rights to the Mass. Now, is that everywhere? Well, if he does this and he approves it in, where was it? San Cristobal they met, I think. I could be wrong about that. Again, I can go over all the details of this if you're interested later today. The point is bringing all of it together. So I'm just going to be superficial with the things we've already looked into on this channel. So why is it important? Well, if he adds a mine right to it, that opens up the door for a whole lot of things happening at churches all over the place, which is ironic considering they want to outlaw Latin. Let me be clear here, since we're always, since the society and the system's always talking about equal rights and equity and inclusion, I think you're excluding an entire a huge portion of society and of the Catholic Church when you try to ban a language. I've never heard of such a thing in the world, and I think that part of things is pretty low down. I also hear the Pope stand up for innocent life, though, and I also hear him do things that our mainstream media does not tell us about, because I watch the Rome news, and it tells me what's going on actually in Rome. You might want to try it sometime, looking at news sources other than American or English-speaking news sources. Of course, you want to learn the basics, but Latin's not that hard because most languages sprung forth from Latin, and it's where we get all of our plants and herbs and medicinal vocabularies from. So, I think a big reason he's doing this is because there is a coronation on the 6th. And during the coronation, this person is not a Christian. They are not really of the Church of England, or let's put it this way. They're not of the form of the original Church of England, but this person, it seems, or this family, is able to change the formation of said church, of the Church of England, with their coronation, because they want to include Muslims, they want to include Buddhists, I believe they said, Hindus. So we have a few things going on here. Is that a good thing? Yes and no. It's always good to get to know the cultures of others and, not just point your finger and say demon everywhere just because somebody is different than you. However, being well-balanced individuals, we also have to look at the dark of that side and say, why not just start a different church? Why do you have to wreck Christ's churches? Why do you gotta demolish the Church of England, where Christ's literal church, an area in where, or at least the people who started it were the original Christ followers. And if you do your actual digging in your history, you will find these things out. Christ did not follow the Jewish path. There's many people that want to try to get you to think that. It would appear that he did the opposite. And I'm just being blunt and frank here, because time is short and people need to understand there are pictures painted and visualizations given to you so that you have this built-in framework for things. And if you see a person, you might say, wow, that person's very righteous, they must be holy. And that's not always true. Just because someone appears to be upright does not mean that they are that way in their private and personal dealings with other beings. So if the Pope allows this, that opens the floor for a whole lot of different things to occur during this coronation ceremony. I'm being very careful with my words on purpose. Everything I do is with a reason, and it is mindful. I didn't always have this same attitude that I have now coming into this. I did not want to do any of this. I still was missing my old life and being popular and being a makeup diva, on Facebook and all these things. Now I'm happy to just be in my room with my dog and a couple of my books. That makes me very happy. Very joyful. I share these things because I can see them happening before they're happening, and I'm trying to warn people of what's coming, and I've been doing this for a few years now, so obviously I am, of course, tired. Also, on the 5th and 6th, there will be yet another eclipse. It's not talked about in America because it's not going to be seen here, and it's a different kind of eclipse. It's not really a big deal to most people. A penumbral lunar eclipse lasting over 4 hours happens overnight on May 5th through 6th, 2023. It's visible from Eastern Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Antarctica, and Indonesia. Now, let's look at this visual for a moment. This is where the penumbral lunar eclipse will hit, and how it will hit, and when it will hit. And where it will be the brightest. Well, let's actually, can we go there? Sorry about that. This is Earth sky. It's usually whenever, send me back later. Okay. Usually this is the source that I use for events happening in the sky. I just actually hung up my map, you guys, that I got from the local consignment shop. It is a map of the heavens and the constellations. It's from at least the early 80s. Most of them are between the 60s and the 80s. And it's lovely, and I can't wait to show you. I think maybe I'll take a picture of it and use it as the thumbnail in this video, actually. And as long as the world doesn't totally flip upside down and we don't all fall off, I will still plan on doing videos with my maps. I also have a map of the United States hanging under that. That's no accident. And it is federal land, and it shows us across the U.S. Forests and which lands are owned by the government. And it's going to be mighty useful when we compare it to missing 411 maps. So I wanted to get that out and let you know that I'll be doing that as well. Okay, if you're commenting, I cannot see it, so I apologize. So we are going to have this penumbral lunar eclipse, and it will be from May 5th to 6th for a few hours, about several hours. Now it begins at 11 a.m. Eastern here on May 5th. Let's see. I will include this link because, again, I don't want to get too in-depth in this topic at this moment. This is just a quickie. I have other things going on for a little bit. But it tells you about exactly what it is. It says, so no total or partial lunar eclipse in the Earth's dark shadow can take place because of this full moon in May sweeps to the south of the Earth's umbra. So it lets you know like what's going on and where you will see it at. And this is why we're in the dark. We won't actually see the eclipse. I find it very interesting, though, that it will be visible in Europe. I find that very, very interesting, and you should as well. So, May 5th and 6th, we have a penumbral lunar eclipse, okay? We also have, I don't know where that's at, or when that was. I know that the next big eclipse is in October. That's going to be a big one that everybody should kind of just relax for and not go out amongst a lot of people, I think. Okay, so we have the Pope making that decision on the 5th, and on the 6th we have this happening. Now I'm going to tell you about this weird encounter I had. So I went to a little garage sale in it's like a development. It's a mini development with like its own cul-de-sac. It doesn't drive all the way through on the side of the road up the road from me. Like I said, it's a very rural area, and you have a few of those areas where it's a lot of seniors living together like that in groups. And anyone that thinks that they're all good and sweet, I mean, not everything is as it seems. Anyways, so I go to this estate sale, and they're talking healthcare, and of course I get in on that conversation because I was an aide, and I understand how that works and the system and all that. And I saw a couple things that I wanted. One was a statue of St. Francis of Assisi with the little dove on his hand. So I wanted that because that's on my dad's memorial thing. And, He liked birds, and it's just kind of his thing. And a pot, like a vintage pot that I really wanted for a long time, with the same design and everything. And so I was like, well, I'll come back for that tomorrow. So I go back to grab it. And of course, anything can be prearranged. I get that. But I just want to tell you about this encounter because let's just say that all of these encounters I've had have been prearranged, right? The last 4 years, they've all been arranged by somebody else around me. Why go to all that trouble for somebody who is nobody? I don't matter in the scheme of things. So I'm assuming that these things are happening to other people as well. I just don't see them talking about it as much, or they aren't talking about it as much. And here's the thing, when you talk about it and you expose that it's happening, you're exposing the evil to light and it will flee. So that's another reason I do these videos. So this older man, and again, I've always had a good rapport with the older folks. I was raised with amongst older people. And I was leaving, and he tells me how he's basically he was the president of like the homeowners association for that group of people, and this, that, and the other. And he starts telling me how he has a twin, and I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone around here has a twin except for me. Side note, sidebar, if you haven't looked into Project Paperclip yet, you need to. I have a problem with clones. I have a real problem with thinking that the Father would allow human beings without souls to walk around like that. However, if we have IVF babies, then that's possibly very similar to that. So if that is happening, do these beings have souls, or are they vessels for other spirits to make use of whenever they feel like it? Why do that when you have real humans, though, and you can steal their souls, right? So, I'm at like some kind of contention with myself over that. And so he tells me how he has a twin, and Twinsburg is actually right up the road from me, which is funny. And I was like, okay, yeah, okay. And he tells me about how he has this book, and it has his family history in it, and this, that, and the other. And I was like, oh, here we go. This is right down my alley. And he starts talking about Native Americans. I'm like, I've had a suspicion that my mom was Native American, and they just, they didn't tell anybody. And, oh shoot, now I'm forgetting what he said, because it was just like these other conversations. And what I'm starting to think is Virginia, who watches the channel, a friend of the channel, she sent us that that page from the Wayback Machine. She sent it to us about Job's star. And so, yeah, she said Legion. And I'm like, maybe it is Legion. Maybe it is literally like the spirit of the Antichrist talking to people through these vessels, like the movie The Fallen. If you haven't seen it with Denzel Washington, you should see it. It's really good. It's an older flick, but it shows like how these things, just by the touch of a hand, can get into a vessel. Now, granted, you can't do that to everybody. You're not going to do that with a true believer in Christ. It takes a whole lot of effort to get into someone who is a believer. It can be done, but it takes consent and all these things, which I do not. Let me be clear about that. But because they cannot get into some of us, they will, I've noticed, harass and torment us. I thought it was just happening the last few years. Here it's been happening my whole life, but it's been a lot worse these last couple of years. And so he starts telling me about these books, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I said, well, I'd read that sometime, or something like that, I said. And as I'm leaving, he tells me, be safe. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And he goes, be safe again. And we've talked about how like that be safe, stay strong type thing, how it sounds like almost like a mantra now, and how they mean the opposite, just like the peace sign means the opposite, or F you over where. So here's what he also said. And this really got me because it reminded me, and I did a video of this, it reminded me of the man walking the dogs the couple days prior that was screaming at me and Sam, and he's the one that was walking down the wrong side of the road. He said to me, I told him that I was from Pittsburgh, and we started talking about Native Americans, and I said, yeah, my dad had a painting on the mantle of how it used to look with some Native Americans. I think they were Cherokees, the real rough ones, overlooking it. And he says to me, Pittsburgh, and I said, yeah. He said, is that in the States? And I looked at him, and I said, what? He goes, is that in the States? And I'm like, Yeah, it's in Pennsylvania, one street over. And I'm thinking maybe he's just older and he's having a moment. But he don't look that old, you know what I mean? Maybe 60 something. Not old enough to, be whatever. And I'm like, wow, that's really weird. Because the other day the guy was screaming at me because I asked him, I'm like, you're on the wrong side of the road. You're pushing me into traffic with my dog because we were walking the opposite ways. And he had two dogs and I had one. And my dog was half the size of both of his dogs. And anyways, he was yelling at me. I was like, can you just move over? You're on the wrong side of the road, please. And he starts insulting me in the middle of the street, but that's beyond the point. He goes, how do you know that? How do you know? And I'm like, 'cause it's America. And I don't know. Okay, so let me get to the point here. What does that mean? That is two people in the matter of a couple of days, both acting as if they don't know proper American courtesies or proper American, just basic things about America, about being an American. So either this person really is of that family, and this spirit is starting to overtake his people, the ones who have signed on to be not of God in this time. And that's the clue that I gathered from that. When I say I'm getting clues from people, that's what I mean. Because months ago when CV started with the masks and I would never wear one, we went into Walmart and some guy came up to me and started talking to me. And he said, have you watched this? And it was Game of Thrones. And I was like, no. He's like, you don't like Game of Thrones? And he kept saying Game of Thrones. And he's like looking in my eyes. And I'm like, I just didn't really care for it. It wasn't for me. And he's like, but why? And I was like, it just wasn't for me. And he was like, he wasn't mean though. He was like trying to get me to like recognize something, right? It's like these people are giving me clues on purpose. And I'm not trying to take up your whole day. It's not about me. The point is does this mean, okay, because in England, right, they drive on a different side of the road than they do in America. So I imagine that their pedestrian laws would be different than ours as well. I've always been taught, and I know that it says still, because I did a video on it, walk against traffic. Well, for us, that would be the right side of the road. But this man was screaming at me like, how do you know that? How do you know? And I'm like, okay, as far as I knew, I grew up in America and I'm in America. But I told you guys how I thought they renamed things. And I told you how in the beginning of this I was laughed at and called a laughing stock, and how nobody actually takes me seriously because of the basic things that I don't know or understand about life. So I don't know if this spirit is like of that family, like it's an antichrist spirit sent by that family, or if people are now coming into like that hive mind type thing with that family as being the leader in all of this. I don't want to say like this person is the AC because I just feel like that's mean and I don't want to hurt anybody. But at the same time, I feel like that's my job and that's kind of why I'm here in this time. And that's why I've been witnessing for at least 3.5 years regularly 3.5 years, almost daily. Anyways, I know that this might not make sense right away, but it makes sense to me. Like, that's two people in the matter of 2 days. He goes, where's Pittsburgh? I mean, Pittsburgh's an hour and away from here. I only moved an hour away. Most people know it's right next door. You see Steeler signs and pirate signs all over the place, and we sell, our Walmart will sell both Browns and Steelers paraphernalia. So everybody knows that Pittsburgh is, of course, in the States because we're in the States and it's right next to us, right? So I don't know what I'm missing here, but they have a real spirit about them that screams, I am from the other side of the pond. That they don't have the accent, of course. So I don't know what it is that I'm missing and everybody else knows, or I don't know. Please share in the comments what you think, because to me, I go back to that Sesame Street game all the time. The which one of these things doesn't belong, and they would show you 4 things. Well, that's what I got from those 2 interactions. The one common thread they both shared was some type of English, or I mean across the pond, England, some type of England spirit about them. I don't know. I know, again, I know this is going to sound weird, but most people who've been watching me for a period of time understand this, especially if you came over from the original channel. We're like 1,000 people, well, 1,500 people short from that, but hopefully there are still some people here that understand my way of speaking and get what I'm trying to say here. So May 5th and 6th, if you are a Christ follower, you need to watch what's going on. And I want to also do one more thing. It doesn't matter who you are, okay? My mom often said, you're just like your father, and your father thinks he's royalty. And again, clues, right? I'm not knowing they're clues at the time, but they're clues. And I'm like, what do you mean he thinks he's royalty? What, like I get that they might be kind of stuck up to you because they're Ivy League and whatnot, and they're blue collar and or white collar, not necessarily blue collar, but that doesn't mean, that anyone's less than. Because my dad always taught me, you treat the maintenance man the same way you treat the king. Everybody gets treated the same. But this is weird. I never looked up the name of my dad's name before. His name is Regis, right? My dad, he's got a name. He's the only one of the three brothers who has this type of name. His name is Regis. That's his first name. It's a masculine name of Latin and French origin, and I told you my dad's family is French, translating to kingly. You're going to say, well, why is that important? And again, I'm trying to show people it does not matter where you're from. It does not matter what demographic you come from. It doesn't matter if your whole family is a line of the most wicked, satanistic sorcerers in the whole world. You can be something other. You can be different. You can make change. Your bloodline doesn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things. However, certain things will happen to you. Certain things will torment you in certain ways while you are here because of your bloodline. And you have to be willing to choose good. And you have to be willing to ask God, hey, I need your help. I can't get out of this alone. I'm in too deep. My family's in too deep. Can you please just help me out, God? And you talk to the one true God, the true creator God. And you pray in the name of his son, Jesus. Because yes, Jesus is the word incarnate, the word manifest. He is our daily bread. So my dad's name means kingly. And I showed you before. The counts of Toulouse were therefore Merovingians, and in dynasty of Toulouse, Count Raymond V was very close to the Cathars. For this, he was fiercely persecuted by the Catholic Church of Rome. That's my family. Now, in the movie The Matrix, they make the Merovingians out to be the bad guys. Remember, everything that's good is bad, and everything that's bad is good. Everything this place has been telling us that's bad for us, everything they've been telling us is good for us, it's all the opposite. And everything they say that they're doing that's for you and for your welfare, it's not for your welfare. This is the time of them calling evil good and good evil, okay? So my family, for two different reasons, were persecuted by popes. And yet I became Catholic somehow, some way. And the French and Indian, there was a war between the French and Indians, yet my mother and father ended up together somehow. This is also allegedly a bloodline of Christ. Now, people say there can't be a blood. What if there is? And there can be a bloodline because he had a brother named James. He had a couple of brothers who went on to have children. Mary had other children. These bloodline feuds go on forever and ever and ever until somebody stands up and says, enough, I'm not going to participate. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not participating unless I absolutely have to. And I'm always going to be speaking for what I hope is God. Am I going to mess up? Of course I am. I'm going to err. I'm a human being. I'm not yet, regenerated, made new. Not completely. But God's going to do all that for all of us. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your bloodline is. But it does matter here. So you might fight more animosity. Like me, I have not only this thing, and I've showed you my last name, what it means. It means beast and all this other stuff. That's not true. I'm not a beast of any kind. But again, these are all titles and words and symbols that we all use. And this is pretty cool. I wanted to show you guys this because we could do a whole video on name meanings, and I can punch in your names and we can look them up. My name, Guinevere, actually, Genevieve, means fair one, white wave, white spirit. And this is so funny. I actually have a couple of the dwarfs in my room, and I love Snow White. And yeah, I'm an adult. I know that there are people out there that say, oh, adult women who are acting like children. Listen, a lot of us have been very, very traumatized by this place and the acts of vile and vicious men acting like thugs or barbarians or Norse Vikings. Like, can we get a little beyond the raping, pillaging, and taking of the women and children yet, and trafficking of them? Can we have a normal conversation about why our world is headed in the direction it's headed in, and can we put the brakes on? I'm asking you, can we? I sure hope that we can. But even kings went after my family, I guess, because they took over the monarchy that was in France. That apparently my family comes from, Charlemagne and the Merovingians. So I think that's why I'm facing so much resistance from the spirit realm and from my physical family people, because they recognize what started happening in me and they had to stop it. Why people don't want each other saved, I don't know. I pray for the conversion of people every day, because I think then we could live in peace. If we could all at least focus on the fact that we're all made in God's image, and could we focus on peace and love and harmony and learning new skills to sustain ourselves, and to stop letting the screens tell us what we're seeing before we've made a decision for our own self, what we think we're looking at. I'm asking you these things. And this has run on longer than I wanted it to. I'm going to run, but I wanted you to know that the 5th and 6th, you want to watch what the Pope is doing, you want to watch what the sky is doing, and you want to watch what's going on with the coronation. Because I don't know if who they're saying is getting coronated is actually being coronated. And I did a part of that on the proxy video, but there's more to talk about in that regard. Anyways, I hope y'all are well. I planned on releasing a short or two, and I have a lot of information backed up that I didn't see anyone else had about 15-minute cities and a person of interest who's running those. But I'm going to upload those as regular uploads, so you might want to watch for those. But share down below about, your testimony and what's going on with you. And if you think this stuff is strange, is it just me? I hope not, and I don't think so. I love you guys. I think my food's here, so I think I'm going to eat today, and I think I'm going to kick back because it's raining. But I'm gonna do some reading and praying a lot. I love you guys. And if you have a rosary, pray it, because I'm praying mine. If you want to do a Latin rosary live, let me know. I'm willing to do that as well on this channel or the other one.